Please make sure please speak directly into the microphone and make sure that your card is pushed firmly into the console. So now we move on to the main items of business, and we need to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of September 2015 to be laid on the table for... They've been laid on the table for the last 30 minutes. Are you content that I sign these as a correct record of that meeting? Thank you. I will sign those later. Do we have any apologies for absence, Fiona?
Yes, Chairman. We've had apologies from Councillors Brian Ellis, Nick Holder, Simon Thornton and David Else. And just for the record, Councillor David Else is the agent for the two applications on the agenda and would have had to declare a pecuniary interest and withdraw from the meeting for the determination of both of these items.
Thank you. I also have to declare a pecuniary interest in both the applications on the agenda this evening, and so I will be withdrawing from the meeting. In the absence of the Vice Chairman this evening, I need to ask the committee to nominate a chairman for the remainder of the meeting. I understand Councillor Reynolds has offered to step in. Is that correct, Councillor Reynolds?
Agreed.
And so is there a seconder? Yes, plenty. Thank you. Councillor Reynolds, would you like to come and take the chair?
Thank you, colleagues. I've been promoted, albeit temporarily. Okay. Have we got any other declarations of interest?
I think you're declaring a non-pecuniary...
I need to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item B2 as I live in Redhouse Lane. The house is not desperately close, but it is in the same road as mine. Do we have any other declarations of interest? No? Okay. Okay, agenda item number 4. Any questions by members of the public?
None, Chairman.
Thank you. Agenda item number 5. Are there any relevant updates to government guidance or legislation since the last meeting? Is that you, Mr. Evans?
There's none, Chairman.
None, Chairman. Okay, thank you. Okay, application 6. Sorry, agenda item 6, applications for planning permission. In the event of a site inspection being necessary, which I'm rather hopeful won't be, they will be held on Monday the 2nd of November at a time to be agreed. And we have no more public speaking this evening, so we can move on straight to the first application, which at agenda item number 6.2, which is item B1 WA 20151183, 3 Furs Lane, Godalming, Surrey. It's erection of a 2-storey extension following demolition of a single-storey extension. So, Catherine, would you like please to introduce the application to the committee?
Thank you, Chairman. The application site is located on the eastern side of Furs Lane, just north of the junction with Barnes Road. Furs Lane is a residential street featuring a mix of residential properties of varying scale, age and character. This is the proposed block plan. The application is for 2-storey extensions which would wrap around the side and rear of the property, shown in the solid red here, together with a further single-storey extension to the rear. The application also proposes the formation of a vehicular access onto Furs Lane, together with the provision of 2 parking spaces. There's currently no vehicular access and no hard stand or parking spaces at the site. This is very quickly just a photograph of the front elevation. As you can see, there's been some temporary rubble put down on the site whilst contractors work on the property, but there is no formalised access as of yet. This is the rear of the property. Again, the existing lean-to has already been removed from the site. This is a photograph to show the conservatory at number 5, and looking the other way, we have the back of the property here, and this is the rear of number 1 Furs Lane, and they have a lean-to which would have been similar on the back of the application property. Here we just have the existing elevations, The proposed elevations, as mentioned, show a 2-storey wraparound. So this is the front elevation of the property. The 2-storey extension would be subordinate in height and would also be set back from the front elevation. Shown perhaps better in the side elevation here. You can see it's set back from the front elevation. The single-storey extension would extend further in depth than the 2-storey extension and would have a flat roof with a roof lantern here, shown better perhaps in the rear elevation here. The existing floor plans, conventional 3-bedroom, 2-storey property layout, and the proposed floor plans. As you can see, the ground floor would be opened up from the front here, would retain a lounge and hall. The rear of the property would be opened up with a kitchen, dining and family area. And on the first floor, the space would be reconfigured to provide a total of 4 bedrooms with a bathroom and an ensuite to the master bedroom at the rear. As you can see, the ground floor extension here, shown on the first floor plan, would be cropped in. Members are being asked to exercise their judgment with regards to the impact on visual amenity and design and impact on residential amenity. Whilst there are no written updates before you, there are just 2 brief verbal updates to give. There is a condition recommended from the County Highway Authority simply to require that no cars be parked on the hard standing until the vehicular access is in place. So that would need to be included on any permission granted. And also there is a typographical error on page 11 of the agenda which refers to Elstead Parish Council should receive Godalming. Apologies for that. The recommendation is therefore as set out on page 15 of the agenda, that permission be granted subject to the conditions therein plus the additional highways condition that I have mentioned. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Catherine. Members, Councillor Wheatley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it looks pretty good. On number 1 Furs Lane already has been extended, and bearing in mind the difficulty of getting up and down Furs Lane, particularly with its lumps and bumps and bus routes and everything else, the fact that this is going to have off-street parking I think is a tremendous bonus, so I will be agreeing with the officers.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers? Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, I too have no problem with this application due to the proximity of the railway station and the schools. Many houses will be extending rather than moving, so I'm content with this application.
Thank you. That's both ward members. Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. I find this report is extremely cogent in the way the officer has tackled the various issues and the conclusions drawn. So, in essence, I am certainly in favour of the recommendation. I would just like to observe that I'm never very happy where one house is likely to have to rely on getting onto a neighbour's property for items of maintenance and things like that. So although there is certainly the metre or just over a metre gap left, those PV panels on the roof of number 5 may indeed at some time in the future require some repair or change or additions, and there will need to be the liaison between 5 excuse me, and 3. And clearly at the moment there is good neighbourly relations, but thinking longer term it's not always the case. However, that's not what we're sort of judging on tonight, but it's just my sort of observation, and I would always prefer an individual residence to be self-contained, if you will, and self-supporting. And I definitely cannot overturn at all this wonderful conclusion about the parking represents an improvement over the existing situation. So although, of course, you know I don't think 2 spaces is actually sufficient, cannot disagree with that, and I am still in favour of the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I was just about to say you weren't mentioning parking, and you did so right at the end. But 2 spaces is better than no spaces, which is what's there at the moment, so it is an improvement. Do we have any other members? No? Okay. Should I have I think there's a show of hands that the permission is granted as per the recommendation. Fiona?
That's all in favour.
All in favour.
10. Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is item B2, WA 20151-384, which is 7 Red House Lane, Elstead. Again, erection of extensions. Catherine, if you could introduce this.
Thank you,
please.
Chairman. The application site is located to the southern side of Red House Lane. The site comprises a semi-detached 2-storey property. The application is for a front extension, a gable extension, together with a single-storey side extension. This is a photograph of the front elevation of the property. As you can see, this is the neighbouring semi-detached property, which has a gable feature to it already. And this is the neighbouring property to the other side, which you can see is set further forward within the street scene than the application property. This is just a photograph taken from the rear of the property, so the single-storey extension referred to in the plans would be in this location here. Here we have just the existing elevations, which reflect the photographs you've just seen. And the proposed elevations. As mentioned, it would be a front 2-storey extension. It would have a width of 4.6 metres, so not covering the entirety of the front elevation, a depth of 2.6 metres, and an overall subordinate height of 6.8 metres. The side extension, shown here from the front elevation and on the side here, would measure 2 metres by 3 metres. Here are the existing floor plans. At the moment, the property is a 2-bed property. As you can see, the proposals would involve a reconfiguration of the ground floor space and the creation of a 3rd bedroom at 1st floor level. There is just an update to note, again not a written update, but on page 23 of the agenda, reference is made to the rural settlement of Wannosh. Apologies, this should be the rural settlement of Elstead. The matters which members are being asked to exercise their planning judgment on are compliance with policy RD1, the design, visual impact and impact on landscape character, and any impact on residential amenity. The recommendation remains as set out on page 27 of the agenda, that subject to conditions, permission be granted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Members? Councillor Upton?
Yes, could we see the photograph of the adjoining property again, please? That's the one, thank you. Can you just explain again where the this projection on the side is going to impound on the house next door?
Thank you, Chairman. The extension would, well, the main 2-storey extension would be on the front elevation here. It would be set roughly behind this ground floor window, if that is of a concern to you. The single-storey extension would be set down the side of the property here, adjacent to this outbuilding at the neighbouring property.
Thank you. I wasn't sure of the orientation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Wheatley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it looks as though it would improve the street scene, and I think it looks quite attractive, and as even Elstead is in favour, I'm with the officers. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Can I therefore have a show of hands that permission be granted as per the recommendation?
That's 10 in favour.
Okay, that's carried. Okay, thank you. Item number 7 on the agenda is the exclusion of the press and public. There are no items to consider in exempt session, so that concludes the meeting this evening. Thank you, members, and thank you, officers. Right.